You know, we all carry a screen in our pocket. That's a given. But have you ever stopped to think about the screen that's been built inside your own head? Today, we're going to dig into the powerful and often totally invisible ways that screen culture is shaping our minds, our desires, and maybe even who we are. So let's just start with a really direct question, right to you. Are the things you want truly your own desires? Or is it possible they've been kind of suggested, shaped, and even sold to you by that endless fire hose of images, stories, and algorithms you see every single day? And that question gets us right to the heart of what we're talking about today, this idea of mediatized syndromes. It's a fancy term, but the idea is simple. It describes the way our constant exposure to media isn't just entertaining us, it's literally cultivating new ways of thinking and feeling. It's rewiring us from the inside out. All right, so here's our roadmap. First, we'll look at how this whole screen inside us actually works. Then, we'll trace the history of powerful images, all the way from old Hollywood to today's algorithms. We're also going to unpack how empowerment got turned into a spectacle, look at a really specific modern malady that came from it, and, most importantly, talk about how we can start to fight back. Okay, section 1, the screen inside us. We need to understand that we're dealing with a totally new kind of repression here. It's nothing like the old school Victorian-era stuff you might think of. This one works very, very differently. And check this out. This is the key difference. Back in the day, repression worked through silence, through what wasn't said. Society repressed desire by just saying, no, you can't do that. But today, mediatized repression does the exact opposite. It works through constant noise. It floods every single empty moment, every void in your brain with content and pre-made fantasies. It doesn't just forbid your desires, it gets in there and reprograms them before you even know what you wanted in the first place. So how on earth did we get here? I mean, this isn't brand new, but the power it holds has just exploded. To really get a grip on it, we got to take a quick look back at the history of this tyranny of images. You can literally trace the evolution. It starts back in the 30s with Hollywood's Dream Factory, which basically cranked out movies that told everyone how they were supposed to act, who they were supposed to love. Then, by 1975, you have thinkers like Laura Mulvey pointing out the male gaze in film, this idea that the camera forces us to see women as objects. But now we're living under the algorithmic gaze. It's a whole new level. It's a hyper-personalized reality, curated just for you, designed to be addictive and keep you scrolling forever. And the result of all this is a state that some thinkers call hyperreality. This is where the simulation, the perfectly filtered selfie, the insane CGI in movies, that perfect life you see on Instagram, it all starts to feel more real, more exciting than actual messy reality. The line just gets completely blurred, and it makes it harder and harder for us to deal with our own beautiful, imperfect, unstaged lives. Now let's zoom in on a really crucial example of this whole thing at work. We're going to look at how the really powerful, important language of empowerment, especially around feminism, was basically hijacked and turned into a media spectacle. I mean, you all remember the hashtag girlboss, right? This was the perfect storm. What started as a genuine, collective push for women's liberation and fixing systemic problems got co-opted and repackaged. The whole conversation shifted from, let's change the system, to let's win as individuals within the broken system. It turned a collective fight into a project of personal branding and, let's be honest, consumerism. Okay, so underneath this trend is a really deep, unconscious fantasy that psychoanalysts have a pretty surprising name for, the phallic woman. Now, stay with me here. This has nothing to do with anatomy. It's a symbolic idea. It represents a fantasy of a woman who is totally complete, who lacks nothing. No vulnerability, no weakness, no flaws. Just think of those action movie heroines who are impossibly tough and never show any emotion. It is an absolutely unrealistic, brutal caricature of what strength is. So what happens when an entire culture starts pushing people, and women in particular, to live up to this impossible fantasy? Well, it can lead to a very specific and very modern psychological problem. Researchers have started to see a pattern they're calling the pathological narcissistic phallic woman, or PNPW. This is a personality that's basically structured entirely around keeping up that perfect, I don't need anyone image we just talked about. But this huge, empowered persona, It's really just a defense mechanism. It's a mask hiding these deep, gnawing feelings of inadequacy and emptiness. Your whole identity gets built on external stuff, likes, followers, people admiring you, which makes real, genuine connection and vulnerability feel almost impossible. And look, this isn't just some abstract theory. This is painfully real. This quote comes from an actual patient's case study. Publicly, I posted cheerful solo photos and empowerment quotes. Privately, I felt like a void. I mean, that just perfectly captures it, right? That massive gap between the shiny, curated self you show the world and the fragile, empty person you feel like on the inside. The real-world impact is it's staggering. Get this. According to Facebook's own internal research, the stuff they didn't want us to see, a shocking 32% of teenage girls said that when they were already feeling bad about their bodies, scrolling through Instagram made them feel even worse. This constant chase for the perfect image is actively doing damage. Okay, so after all that, the most important question is, what can we actually do about it? How do we start to fight back and reclaim our own mental space? And that brings us to our final section, resisting the mediatized mind. The good news is we are not helpless. There are clear, actionable things we can all do. First, develop media literacy. Seriously, make it a habit to actively question what you see. Ask yourself, what is this image really trying to sell me? Whose fantasy am I looking at right now? Second, you gotta practice a visual diet. Just like with food, be conscious of what you consume. Unfollow the accounts that make you feel like crap, and actively seek out stuff that feels real or makes you feel good. And third, on a bigger scale, we have to demand algorithmic ethics. We need to support transparency and push for tech that's designed for human well-being, not just for maximum engagement at any human cost. So I'll leave you with one last question to really think about. If your phone, your laptop, your TV, if all the screens just went silent for a while, what do you think your own mind, your own unconscious, would finally have the quiet space to say?